אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני, אחת שאלתי אותה בקש, אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני, אחת שאלתי
Once there was a king who planted a beautiful garden next to the palace. In the garden's center, the king placed a maze, and a sign on the gate read, "Enter here and seek the center of this maze. At the center, you will find the one thing you have wished for your entire life." Many visitors entered the garden. The paths of the maze were filled with flowers and beauty, and many of the visitors gave up. The maze was beautiful, and the challenge to find the treasure at the center didn't pull strongly enough. They stopped searching, and as they quit, each called out to the king, "Why have you put our heart's desire at the center of a maze? Why must we search?" And the voice of the king responded, "It is only the seeking that makes you ready to find. The seeking is a necessary part of finding. If you reached me without seeking, you would not know that you had found me." This evening, we're here seeking. This is an opportunity. You are in the maze, and there is beauty everywhere. Beauty in the shape of friends you haven't seen for some time. Beauty in the sounds of our music. Beauty in the intention of our prayer. Don't get distracted by that. You're in a maze. Appreciate the beauty, but keep seeking the center of the maze, the authentic experience of what tonight can offer you. Good Yontif. As we have come to do, I'll direct your attention to the diagram over my shoulders and take a moment and familiarize yourself with the exits in this room. There are lots of them should they become necessary. This is going to be a powerful evening. We're going to open up our machzarim, our prayer books, to page 5 to get ourselves underway. On this journey, our soul will awaken to itself. We will venture from innocence to sin and back to innocence again. This is a journey from denial to awareness, from self-deception to judgment. We will learn our divine name. We will move from self-hatred to self-forgiveness, from anger to healing, from hard-heartedness to broken-heartedness. This is the journey the soul takes to transform itself and to evolve. The journey from boredom and staleness, from deadness to renewal. It is the journey from little mind to big mind. From confinement in the ego to a sense of ourselves as a part of something larger. It is the journey from isolation to a sense of our intimate connection to all being. Every soul needs to express itself. Every heart needs to crack itself open. Every one of us needs to move from anger to healing, from denial to consciousness, from boredom to renewal. These needs did not arise yesterday. They are among the most ancient of human yearnings, and they are fully expressed in the pageantry and ritual of these days of awe, in the great journey we make between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We're going to bring a little more light into this room than we already have with the blinding brilliance of the torches in your soul. I'd like to ask Muriel Ashley to join us up front as a representative of Temple Sinai's sisterhood to help us light the candles. We're going to be on page 9. First, we light a memorial candle. Baruch atah Adonai notea b'tochenu chayei olam. Blessed are you, Eternal One, who places within us life everlasting. The human spirit is the lamp of God, searching out what lies within us. Guided by the flame of conscience, on this sacred night we search for truth. Together, shine your light upon us as we strive to serve you. May we find safety in your faithful love. We light the flame of healing and forgiveness on this atonement night. We give thanks for love.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik shel Shabbat v'shel Yom HaKippurim.
Wish someone Shabbat Shalom. That's right. For those of you who wish that Kol Nidrei could be just a little longer, it's Shabbat, so we can add in all the little blue additions to the liturgy this evening. Let's continue on the page with the words of Shehechianu, thanking God for bringing us to this moment.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheyanu v'kiyemanu, v'higianu l'zman hazeh,
We have a lot of new family members this year. And so there are some in the room who don't have the privilege of familiarity with some of our traditions. We're about to begin the 3 repetitions of Kol Nidrei, the central piece of liturgy from this evening. The way we do this at Temple Sinai is the first one is delivered by Alex on the piano. It is a marvelous setting that we have come to love over decades, for many, many years delivered by Vincent Leonti of blessed memory, Leonti, excuse me, and now we're lucky to have it from Alex. It is a beautiful piece, and you should sit and absorb the power of the moment. Then we'll bring the scrolls out of the ark. The second recitation of Kol Nidrei will be all together in English, and then the third recitation will be Cantor Micah and our choir. And so I invite you now to settle into your space and let the sounds of Kol Nidrei wash all over your soul. this point, I'd like to invite all of the men and women who've served Temple Sinai over the years as presidents of this congregation and now enjoy the title of past in front of that president name to join us up on the bima. And as we open the ark doors, if the rest of you are able, would you please be upstanding? We're going to continue on page 14. Yom Kippur, the Jewish people's festival of the soul, and Kol Nidrei, its sacred portal. A night of deep emotions, a night, as the psalmist wrote, to rejoice with trembling. We rejoice at the sound of Kol Nidrei, rhythmic words of release from vows, oaths, and promises to God that we fail to keep. We tremble at the melody, music of spiritual amazement. It fills us with awe as we stand before God and Torah. We rejoice that we stand together, strengthened by community in this hour of shared weakness and humility. We tremble, for tonight we confess our flaws, admit our imperfection, and acknowledge a power far beyond our understanding. We rejoice that we commit ourselves to great endeavors because we feel so deeply and think so nobly, and we tremble, for we find that our ideals are far greater than our ability. Our promises surpass our might. We rejoice in the freedom that is Kol Nidrei's true gift, the freedom to begin a new year without fear of failure, to aspire to be God's image in the world. We tremble because we are mortal. We rejoice in our gratitude for life. We rejoice with trembling and enter Kol Nidrei to face our humanity. Let us read together in the middle of page 18. All vows, resolves, and commitments, vows of abstinence and terms of obligation, sworn promises and oaths of dedication that we promise and swear to God and take upon ourselves from this day of atonement until the next day of atonement. May it find us well. We regret them and for all of them we repent. Let all of them be discarded and forgiven, abolished and undone. They are not valid, and they are not binding. Our vows shall not be vows, our resolves shall not be resolves, and our oaths, they shall not be oaths.
Kol Nidrei ve'esarei v'charamei ve'kanamei ve'chinuyei ve'kinusei u'shavuot. Sharon.
Shvikin shviti bedeli uvutalin lo shiririn
Page 20. All shall be forgiven, the entire community of Israel and the stranger who lives in our midst, for all have gone astray in error. Moses prayed to God, as you have been faithful to this people ever since Egypt, please forgive our failings now, in keeping with your boundless love. And God responded, Salachti kidvarecha, I forgive as you have asked. Standing for a bit longer yet. We're going to continue on page 22. As we started on Rosh Hashanah last year and continued this year, we have congregants who have added to our liturgy, and I'd like to ask Elizabeth Giles to join us for her.
She's not feeling well, so I'm going to read it on her behalf tonight.
Hope she feels better.
She says, Shema, it is your name I praise, your name I sing through the day, the one, the eternal. Shema, the sound of love eternal, morning, noon, and evening, the covenant between the universe and the people. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, V'ahavta, a sacred contract between us, God, and the people, a covenant that is ever present with reminders, the kiss of the mezuzah and the donning of tefillin. We sleep and wake with your name on our lips. We come together to praise your name and give thanks for Torah. We bring forth the holy as we share mitzvot in your name. Your love for your people Israel has been steady and constant, for you, Adonai, are the one true God.
Let's turn to page 28, and with full volume on both lines, let's offer the Shema as one people, one family, one tradition in one moment.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Wow, what power. I loved being in the middle of that. Let's be settled as we turn the page and continue on page 30 with Ve'ahavta.
Ve'ahavta
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לתותפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We moved the lectern into the center of the room earlier this year because at Sinai we worked to all be peers, working our way through the experience together and not relegating farming out the responsibility of leading a prayer to a professional. And there have been so many benefits to doing so. But having the volume of our family on all sides surround sound is just overwhelming. It is such a pleasure. Let's turn to page 40. In the middle there, we'll find the words from Mi Chamocha.
ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה לי ענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Page 43.
When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with the forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting for their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free.
Page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom. Ve'hamidenu shomreinu Shomreinu
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom. Eloheinu leshalom.
You see on page 44, if this was yesterday, we could have skipped.
But we're not going to.
We're not going to. It's not yesterday.
Vishameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot, et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות, את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות, את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות, את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. לדורותם ברית עולם.
When I spend time working with children, almost from toddlers on up to 4th grade, you have to skip 4th grade, but then from 5th grade on up, when you invite them to create silence, they can do it. And it's amazing. The younger they get, the shorter the silence will be, of course. 4th graders, by the way, they just make horrible noises with their cheeks and whatnot. But something strikes children about silence. And they understand immediately that, number one, we don't expect they can do it, and so they're proud that they can. But I think number two, They appreciate being with each other and not needing to make noise. And so, as grown-ups, at least chronologically, we should be able to enjoy that as well. I'm going to invite you in a moment to be silent with me. And there'll be sounds around you. Somebody's stomach will grumble. One of you didn't turn off your cell phone again. I'm sure it'll ring or something. There'll be distractions. And that's an opportunity to forgive and to consider. So let's turn now to page 46. We'll begin together, and then we'll continue on individually, in a crowd, in silence. If you're able, please be upstanding.
Adonai, Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Agi Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Can be settled. Make of us a house for all people. Gather us in hope for all people. Surround us in peace for all people. In wholeness and in love. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tazim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tazim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael. Bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך.
Yontif. I realized I got lucky a few minutes ago when I gave that kavanah about silence. I intended to ask anyone with fourth graders in the room to have them removed, but got lucky. It's said that up in the attic of the Alt Nu Shul in Prague, one will find a monster. Mind you, it's not a dangerous monster. In fact, it isn't even animate. It's said that the golem has been lying there, motionless, for the last roughly 450 years. How did it get up there, you ask? I'll tell you the short version of the events. That period was rough for the Jews of Europe. The pogroms were awful. The conscriptions into service were terrifying, and the expulsions were everywhere. An edict was announced under the rule of Rudolf II, the Holy Roman Emperor, that the Jews of Prague were to be either expelled or killed. And to protect the community, their rabbi, the great Judah Loew, known also as the Maharal, drew upon ancient wisdom from the Talmud and used clay from a nearby riverbank to form the shape of a humanoid body called a golem. Using incantations and special inscriptions, he animated the creature, and it served as a watchman in the night against attack by the townspeople. Each Friday evening, Rabbi Judah would remove the piece of parchment from the golem's mouth, causing it to return to lifelessness, lest it desecrate Shabbat. Legend has it that the golem went rogue, and the rabbi lost control of it. The risk to the members of the community was too great, and so the Maharal was forced to deanimate the golem permanently. He sent the golem up to the attic, he removed the parchment from its mouth, and he barred the doors till today. Nobody was allowed to enter the attic after him, save his successors. The rabbis from the Talmud knew about the golem as well. From their discussions almost 2,000 years ago, it's difficult to discern what it was from their words, but they did enter into an interesting conversation around the question of whether it would be considered murder to kill the golem. Could a person be considered guilty of removing a threat to society? And if so, how is it done? The legal ins and outs of that conversation may be a topic for another sermon, but allow me to make a loose comparison between the golem, a monster of our own making, and Hamas, a different sort of monster of our own making. Both became a danger, and therefore both needed to be neutralized. This past year has been a doozy. I found myself reflecting on where I was last year as I wrote this sermon about my own Zionism. The nightmare of October 7th had not yet changed our world for good. I spoke about the concerns I felt about the judicial reform efforts of the government in Israel. Anti-Semitism in America was still a threat, as always, but it had not yet shown an almost 400% increase in frequency. Our college kids were able to attend school without any kinds of academic and emotional and, of course, physical dangers that we now worry about. And we certainly were not contemplating the effects of a year-long war on multiple fronts and global condemnation of every single step that Israel takes to defend its citizens. One way to say it is that our narratives have collapsed. The truths that we held about America have been undermined. The beliefs that we treasured about the IDF have been eroded and challenged. And the government of Israel has let us down internally and internationally. The question now is, how do each of us respond to the collapse of these long-held stories? Do we cling to the original myths and pretend that nothing has changed? Do we turn away from the institutions and the people who have disappointed us and walk away? Or can we find the courage to remind ourselves what is enduringly true and recommit ourselves to protecting the essence of those narratives? I know that a great number of you read the opinion piece written by Bret Stephens in the New York Times last week, in which he enumerated the shocking number of events this past year which jarred so many in the American Jewish community awake to a reality that we'd failed or perhaps chosen not to acknowledge until it was impossible to avoid. I don't often say things like this, but I think it's incumbent on each of you to take the time to read that article. And if you don't have access to the Times, let me know, and I'll share it with you. He articulates the ways in which the myth of the American dream for the Jews has been nothing more than that, a myth. When I teach kids about Jewish mythology and sacred legend, I tell them that in the conflict between your science teacher's explanation of the origin of the world and the beginning of life on earth and the Torah's version, you should absolutely believe the science teacher. She's right. But then I follow that up by assuring them that this does not mean surrendering the sacred value and truth in the mythology of the Torah. They must listen carefully, but differently, to the Torah. It is also true, even if it's not accurate. Evolution and the cultural truths in the story of creation can coexist. And it's a crucial lesson for our kids, namely that it's possible to hold more than one truth in our mind at the same time. Some older American Jewish parents are mortified that their adult children and grandchildren are arguing views about Israel that feel like a betrayal. You raised them in the modern set of values that promoted the equality and value of human life. In some of your homes, Israel was a constant presence and was the embodiment of those values. We saw Israel as the David in a war against the Goliath of Arabs surrounding the Jews on all sides. She was held up as the quintessential example of a just country. These are elements essential to Israel's foundation story. And that narrative includes the ancient myths and legends about God granting us that land forever. The story is based upon the need for a national refuge after the Holocaust. It's founded on the existential threats that were real at the time of its writing. It heralds the bravery and ingenuity of the early settlers. It boasts of achievements and collective values. But most centrally, the Israeli narrative is based on the Jewish morality that keeps the pricelessness of life front and center. That is the story that explains Israel's presence around the world in rescuing strangers from natural disasters, or young soccer players in Thailand who get trapped in caves, or Yazidi women who were kidnapped and sold as slaves. That story explains why Israel agreed to the hostage exchange for Gilad Shalit when Israel released 1,027 prisoners in exchange for that one Israeli. And it's that story which explains why Israel has captured such a meaningful place in the hearts of so much of the world. But today's younger generation has only known an Israel that is the Goliath, militarily, economically. They heard you loud and clear that human life is universally sacred, but they see too many examples of violations of those human rights in Israel's 70 years relationship with the Palestinians. Too many to overlook them. The struggle of these young adults is no betrayal. They're simply trying to reconcile the collapse of a narrative that can no longer stand up in today's world. They see how that mythology has begun to crumble as Israel has matured and faced the pressures of new information, events, politics, and cultural evolution. It's led some to ask if releasing the masterminds of October 7th in exchange for that one Israeli was wise. It has led to homegrown Israeli political movements that shock us with their extremist, fundamentalist points of view, and it has led to the most racist and radical Knesset in Israel's history. This past February, hundreds of violent Jewish settlers descended on the West Bank villages of the Palestinians around Huara. They killed one Palestinian. They left more than 100 Arabs badly beaten, many to within an inch of their lives. They set the villagers' homes on fire, many of them with families still inside. And they walked away. This went on for 3 days, and the IDF soldiers in the area stood by and watched it happen. Not one of the Jews involved was jailed for any of this. On July 29th this summer, 10 soldiers, Jewish soldiers, were being investigated for abusing a Palestinian who was already in their custody. In protest of the soldiers' detention, right-wing gangs stormed 2 Israeli military bases and broke into the courtrooms, calling for the release of the accused Jewish soldiers, saying that they should be heralded as heroes, not villains. These kind of stories are important examples of the crumbling of the narrative. These high-profile events leave some of our liberal minds asking the question, what is happening to our homeland? We are only now, in the last 20 years, beginning to see new approaches to telling the Zionist story through the work of Benny Morris and Ari Shavit and Noah Tishby. These historians and journalists hold on to the best of who we are, but admit to the complications of the journey. Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik seems to be responding to this moment when he observed back in 1979 that human beings should be ready to rebuild and reconstruct even as previous structures collapse. This is not easy, Soloveitchik admits. To build initially is difficult, but to rebuild is even more challenging. Faced with destruction and devastation, he said, this then is what the Torah requires of human beings: to act, to create, and when necessary, to recreate. But why must we recreate our Israeli narrative? Other countries certainly are not. The United States has a narrative that's been crumbling for 150 years more, but we just continue to tell ourselves that this is the land of equal opportunity for all. Must Israel be exceptional amongst peer nations in order to earn our identity as a Jewish nation and not just a nation for the Jews? My answer is yes. We are obligated as a mitzvah to do so. But I have some qualifications and explanation. Ironically, I have spent my life rejecting, downplaying, and ignoring the Jewish tradition of exceptionalism. The theme of chosenness has always left me uneasy, and my conversations lead me to think that I'm not alone. And while I still believe that we are inherently no better than any other people on the planet, this year I've been forced to admit that we have worked harder than many examples of other people through history to stay loyal to that Jewish narrative. Throughout this awful war, I am so proud of the way that Israel has worked and continues to work to protect life, even the lives of citizens in the enemy's territory. Richard Overy, a historian of World War II, offers an answer in his book to the question why the Allies won. He surveys the advantages Germany had over the Allies, logistically and economically. But then Overy argues that Germany's great disadvantage was in terms of morality. The Allies succeeded in creating a differentiation between the mass-murdering, uninhibited fascism of the Nazis and the moral values of the Allied forces. They consciously strove to paint the war in terms of good and evil. And similarly today, we feel driven to maintain the huge chasm that differentiates us from the uninhibited barbarism of Hamas and Hezbollah. But there are certainly Jewish voices who call for us to meet their brutality with like brutality. Israeli journalist Tzvi Hezkeli says, "The Arabs only understand merciless and uninhibited power." He may not be wrong. Looking back again to the Second World War, in 1944, German soldiers captured and then assassinated 80 French partisans. Their French comrades then issued a warning through the Red Cross that they would execute the same number of German soldiers. When they received no reply, the French made good on their threat and executed 80 German POWs. No captured French partisans were killed by Germany again. You want to get the attention of the other side? Match their war crimes by hitting back in a way that will deter them from repeating the offense. The choice of the French worked, but they took an enormous hit to their sense of morality when they lowered themselves to the level of the Nazis' behavior. As the atrocities of Hamas, who have since been joined by Hezbollah and the Houthis, continue to be revealed, I have to fight the urge to agree with Middle East commentator Eliyahu Yossian when he says, we must act with determined and consistent brutality. Sort of makes me feel like the prison warden in the movie Cool Hand Luke, who explains his own violence, saying, I don't like this any more than you do, but this is the way he wants it, so he gets it. Honestly, I think sometimes it might just be easier to fall asleep at night if we simply accepted the rules of engagement set by those terrorists. But then, I return to gratitude that we do not allow ourselves to fall in this way. I believe that Israel has the morality to prosecute necessary wars in a style that would make David Ben-Gurion proud. He told us that the Israeli Defense Forces would not be an army like other armies. And if you need me to provide you with examples to prove this point, I'll be happy to buy the coffee for that conversation. But let us be honest. To simply do better than Hamas on their measure of morality is no staggering badge of honor. American philosopher Sam Harris says that we need to be better than our enemies, but there's also a failure point. Rabbi Yitz Greenberg said, if the Israeli army is 5% more moral than its peers, and Yitz emphatically believes it is, he said, it will be a light unto the nations. If it is 25% better, it will bring the Messiah. But if it's 50% more moral, it will be destroyed. Too many expect a perfect Israel, aghast at every shortfall, ready to pounce at any stumble. But a perfect Israel cannot survive among the nations. Israel certainly cannot remain a doormat, allowing its enemies to destroy them while they worry about correcting every imperfection. This is war. But neither can we use that as an excuse not to strive to be better. Rabbi Cohen of Congregation Agudath Shalom down the block taught us yesterday at lunch that the confession of sins that we'll soon undertake is important. But he quoted Rav Kook, who said that Hakarat HaTov, which we will also do, the acknowledgement of the good in our lives, is even more important. Rav Kook says that it's here that we have the ability to see what is already possible and to strive to be even better. It is here that growth happens. If we are proudly to tout the achievements of the Jewish people and our religion's wisdom throughout the centuries, then I think that we have a responsibility to stay focused on that goal. That word, responsibility. Break it up into its two parts for clarity. Response and ability. Our ability to offer a response to questions about our choices means that when we feel our behavior is defensible, we have a response and have therefore acted with responsibility. And what does that response look like? For us, here in America, it means speaking out. I was so proud that immediately following February's Jewish pogrom in the West Bank, the vast majority of the Jewish world spoke in one deafening voice of condemnation of that behavior. We resolutely refused to let the world associate our peace-loving Judaism with the cruelty of those radical Jewish ideologues. Not only was our condemnation reflective of our values, it did good things for the individual who expressed that outrage. It reminded us of who we are. But I'm also frustrated. I'm frustrated that in the Islamic world, the vast majority of the planet's Muslims are exhibiting some strange sort of tribalism in which non-radicalized Muslims stand in solidarity or at least in silence with jihadists, even when they themselves are not extremists. This permissive silence allows for horrific action and philosophy to continue in the name of Islam. Similarly, I'm frustrated that in the Jewish world, I see so many who silence the internal voice of their own moral imperative, who ignore that still small voice calling them to serve the greater good, who leave their sense of obligation way down at the bottom of their list of priorities. I suspect that this might happen for some because of the uncomfortable dissonance of holding Jewish pride and Jewish guilt at the same time when it comes to Israel. Counterintuitively, Rabbi David Wolpe describes this discomfort as a spiritual opportunity. The Jewish people, he says, are a phoenix pursued by arsonists. Despite the recurrent flames, we have continued to cherish the ideals of Torah. Again and again, we turned the flames into a source of illumination, forging meaning from loss and kindling sparks of holiness amid destruction. Thich Nhat Hanh goes a step further in teaching about the importance of suffering. He says, if we shield ourselves from suffering, we will miss out on a fundamental part of reality. The kingdom of God is a place, he says, that has suffering. It is our suffering that teaches us how to love and empathize with others who are also suffering. Amazingly, this voice for peace claims that he would not want to go to a place that does not have pain. I feel the truth in his words, and I know that staying quiet and avoiding the pain of Israel's truths, claiming the narrative hasn't collapsed, is no longer functioning for me. Don't hide yourself from this pain, this discomfort and suffering, as together we need to recreate the narrative of the state of Israel. Like anything worth achieving, it is not instantaneous nor easy. But, and this is important, if we wish for yet another generation to carry forth the torch of Torah values in Israel, we have to demonstrate to our young people that their Jewish heritage, as manifest by the state of Israel, is something to be proud of and to boast about to others. Okay, the next sentence out of my mouth is the one that's going to be the one that earns me the most angry phone calls after the sermon. So hang on to your seat, okay? If Israel is to sacrifice its moral advantage and debase itself after the model of other nation states, then I have a hard time making a case for why the state of Israel should exist. Our religious tradition is still alive when so many others have faded from the world because of what it stands for. That core message of our whole tradition demands care for the vulnerable and the suffering, because you know what it is to be vulnerable and suffering. Striving toward this demand will be the test of whether Israel can live as a Jewish state or a state of Jews who lost sight of their Judaism. What makes the Jewish state so special to us and unique in the world is that it was founded on principles and goals leading it to serve as an aspiration as high as the heavens. Israel is a nation capable of lighting up the moral darkness that we allow to exist all over our world. Jewish values have always been countercultural, but they are as important and meaningful to the world today as they were 3,000 years ago. And when we stand by their expression, others will choose to stand with us. We don't have to be the light unto the nations, but if we are not at least a light, we will have sacrificed a core element of our people's character. So long as I can hold up Israel as an example of a democracy based on the morality of our beautiful religious tradition, then I can stand strong in support. But be clear, for me, this cannot be an open-ended blank check of support with the message, I stand with you, right or wrong. That would be akin to the tacit approval that I see from too many in the world around other awful behavior. Just as we distinguish our criticism of radical Islam from Islamophobia, similarly, we must be allowed to distinguish our criticism of Israel without being accused of anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism. My sermon, delivered last October 13th, urged us not to let our pain and our rage cause us to lose our humanity. So now, we witness the terrible scenes from Gaza and Lebanon. We know that innocent civilians caught in the crossfire are dying. We must grieve for those innocents, and we must not follow that sentence with the word but. I imagine that Rabbi Lowe of Prague must have felt a great sadness at having to kill the golem, something he had created. Knowing that it was absolutely necessary did not help. There's a complicated narrative that explains how the situation in Israel has come to be, and now destroying the evil monsters should similarly give us no pleasure. Israel is a land flowing with milk and with honey. But remember that honey is always accompanied by the bees with their stingers. The sweetness of this world is always accompanied by the bitterness. And neither the sweetness nor the bitterness can be appreciated without the other. Good Yontif.
על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על ביתנו התינוקת, שמור לי הטוב. על האש המבוערת, על המים הזכים, על האיש השב הביתה מן המרחקים, על כל אלה, על כל אלה, שמור נא לי אלי הטוב, על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על נטע קור נטוע, אל תשכח את התקווה, השיבני ואשובה אל הארץ הטובה. שמור לי על זה הבית, על הגן, על החוכמה, מיגון, מפחד פתע וממלחמור. שמור על המעט שיש לי, על האור ועל הטוב, על הפרי שלא הבשיל עוד ושנאסף, על כל אלה, על כל אלה, שמור נא לי אלי הטוב, על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, משרש אילן ברוח, מרחוק נושר כוכב, משאלות ליבי בחושך נרשמות עכשיו. אנא שמור על כל אלה ועל אהובי נפשי, על השקט, על הבכי ועל זה השיר, על כל אלה, על כל אלה, שמור נא לי אלי הטוב, על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על נטע הקור נטוע, אל תשכח את התקווה, השיבני ואשובה אל הארץ הטובה.
Let's turn to page 82, and if you're able, please be upstanding.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, tavo lefanecha tefillatenu. ואל תתעלם מתחינתנו, שאין אנחנו, אז if אני מוקשה עורף, לומר לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, צדיקים אנחנו ולא חטאנו, אנחנו חטאנו.
Our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence. And when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin, but in truth, we've stumbled and strayed, and we have done wrong. As we begin Ashamnu, I invite you to ball up your fist and beat your chest, but I remind you, don't beat yourself up too hard.
Ay, 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 ay.
Just to make sure you knew what you were beating your chest about, let's say together in the English. Of these wrongs we are guilty. We betray, we steal, we scorn, we act perversely, we are cruel, we scheme, we are violent, we slander, we devise evil, we lie, we ridicule, we disobey, we abuse, we defy, we corrupt, we commit crimes, we are hostile, we are stubborn, we are immoral, we kill, we spoil, we go astray, and we lead others astray. You can be seated. In answer to all of these things that we have just accepted as our own, we can turn to the bottom of page, actually you don't need page 91 because the words are going to be on the screen for Ve'al Kulam, about all of these.
Am I there for those who need me, giving of my heart completely? Have I been caring and have I been patient? Have I forgiven without reservation? Do I take my days for granted? Treated others even-handed? And shown compassion to the homeless stranger? Have I been humble before my Creator? Ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, Eloha slichot ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, Eloha slichot ve'al kulam. Have I tread lightly on the planet? Have I held fast to your commandment? And have I raised my voice against injustice? Have I been giving or have I been selfish? Ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, Eloha slichot ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, Eloha slichot ve'al kulam. Selach lanu, mechalanu, kaper lanu ve'al kulam. Selach lanu, mechalanu, kaper lanu ve'al kulam.
Ve'al kulam,
Esa einai el heharim,
slichot,
me'ayin yavo esri,
ve'al kulam,
esri me'im Adonai,
slichot,
osei shamayim haaretz.
On page 93, you'll find that section of Hakarat Hatov, a proclamation of the good, calling out what we've done well this year. And this is the part that Rav Kook, through the words of Rabbi Cohen, we spoke about this inspiring us more as a carrot, perhaps, than the stick of beating ourselves about the sins. So we will share these things we have enjoyed as successes.
God, our creator and guide, let us speak now of the healing acts by which we bring you into the world, the acts of repair that make you a living presence in our lives. Al hatikun shetikanu lefanecha, for the act of healing we have done openly or anonymously, and for the act of repair we have done without personal gain.
Al ha-tikun shetikanu lefanecha, together, for the act of healing we have done by seeking forgiveness, and for the act of repair we have done by forgiving others.
Al hatikun shetikanu lefanecha, for the act of healing together we have done through righteous giving, and for the act of repair we have done by opening our hearts.
Al ha-tikun shetikun lefanecha, for the act of healing we have done by comforting the mourner and visiting the sick, and for the act of repair we have done by pursuing justice and human rights, fairness and civility.
Al hatikun shetikanu lefanecha, for the
The
act of healing
we have done by making peace between one person and another, and for the act of repair we have done by protecting nature and all its creatures. For the act of healing we have done by teaching our children the ways of peace, and for the acts of repair we have done by teaching our children the ways of Torah.
Al hatikun shetikanu lefanecha, for the act of healing we have done by honoring elders and loving the stranger, and for the act of repair we have done in response to your commandment, choosing life and blessing. Ve'al kulam, and all these bring nearer the day when you shall be one and your name shall be one.
We reach out to God with these words, and we pray that God hears us. On page 98, the words Shema Kolenu invite God with almost an urgency that approaches begging. Hear our voice. Listen to what we have to say, God. We're not just filling the air with words.
Shema ברחמים
On page 100. God of forgiveness, we come before you in need of compassion. At Sinai, you spoke words that guide our lives to this day, but our ancestors lost faith in you, lost hope in their Redeemer. With one voice, they had promised Na'aseh v'nishma, and yet, stiff-necked, they broke their word, adoring an idol of gold. How wondrous your compassion in the face of their rebellion, your forgiveness in that moment of human weakness and doubt. We, too, have broken promises to you. We, too, worship the work of our own hands. We, too, make of gold a god, and we, too, forsake your word. If you're able, please be upstanding. At Sinai, you revealed 13 attributes of mercy. These aspects of your nature, your very essence, we now recall. We're going to continue on page 114.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol aleinu. Ve'alol aleinu, ve'tapeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Kalechol Tzar, Umasti,
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Kadvenu b'sefer chaim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, Chodesh Aleinu, Chodesh Aleinu, Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu, Shema Koleinu, Shema Koleinu.
Bottom of page 115.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu v'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu v'aneinu, ki ein banu maasim. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, ve'hoshienu. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, ve'hoshienu.
And at the top of page 117, we find Aleinu.
Aleinu לשבח אדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל. Ushina to zobig of Hemeromim, Hu Eloheinu Eod, V'anachnu koreim, U'mishtachavim, U'modim, Lifnei Melech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמנו אחד, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמנו אחד.
We'll turn now to a poem written by Debbie Ferry.
Like that song that keeps playing and playing in my head, the one that grabs my soul and takes me elsewhere instead. I think about you. At times it was so easy to be with you and talk to you and listen to you. You were so present, so honest, so direct. Like that time I was bursting with a story to tell, and there you were walking toward me. What a gift for that moment together, to chat unhurried, unjudged, just loved. I think about you and the times it was hard to be with you, when I felt frustrated, angry, disappointed, alone. Like that time I waited and you never showed up, and you shrugged when I mentioned it later. Did I just not matter? I miss you, my friend, though we left things unsaid. I will think of you again when yet another song will be playing in my head.
In addition to Yom Kippur, this being Shabbat, we'll take a moment and mention the names of recent losses to our community and those observing Yahrzeit this week. This Shabbat, we mourn the very recent loss of Estelle Kuttner, who is the aunt of Valerie Rosenson, and Joel Friedman, who's father of Richard Friedman. Our hearts are with you as you mourn their losses. This Shabbat marks Yahrzeits for Rosalind Badiner, Malcolm Becker, Michael Bromley, Eugene Connolly, Maddie Desjardins, Harvey Dorfsman, Jay Frankel, Howard Glogowski, Natalie Susanna Gross, Arlette Rachid, Paul Shapiro, Irene Thompson, and Molly Zamor. Their memories are blessings to those who knew and loved them, and we honor those memories with the words of Kaddish on page 122. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divara chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ul'amei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal, shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela u'le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi Shalama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, V'imru Amen. May God send peace to all who mourn, as together we say, Amen.
Amen.
And you can be settled. I'd like to invite Robin Himmelstein to come on up and share a few brief announcements with us this evening as one of our vice presidents of the congregation.
Gemar Tov. I wish to thank many of you for making all of our meaningful services possible, including our clergy, staff members, musicians, and our choir. If you've not done so, please pick up a grocery bag as you leave services this evening. You could bring them back tomorrow full of non-perishable food. These donations go to the food pantry at the Faith Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church and person-to-person food assistance program. As mentioned last week, if you have not already, please remember to join us in our annual giving campaign. You can participate online at our website, and we hope you will contribute as generously as you are able to. You can make our usher's job just a little easier by just leaving your prayer books at your seats and leave this as you leave the sanctuary this evening. Please refer to the back of your ticket for the complete schedule of high holiday services tomorrow. Okay, a couple of notes for tomorrow for you guys. Following the conclusion of tomorrow morning's service, you're invited to stay in the building with us and enjoy one of our 4 activities taking place as part of our Yom Kippur Your Way. There'll be additional detailed information in the morning announcements. Please plan to arrive 10 to 15 minutes early to help speed things along and having your tickets ready to show. Tomorrow's afternoon service at 3:30 will now take a new shape. It will still utilize the Torah reading and the story of Jonah, but will use the model of Avodat Halev, meditation service, that so many have come to appreciate during the year. There's no meditation experience required, just an open mind. Again this year, during the 4:30 Yizkor service, there will be an opportunity for each individual to approach the open ark for a private, quiet time in a sacred spot. If you have any questions, please feel free to speak with me or any one of our professional staff members. Good Yontif, and if you're fasting this year, may be an easy and meaningful fast.
Thanks, Robin. There are a lot of special people here this evening, but I want to just mention 3 of them. First, we have Alex's sister and niece with us this evening, so we're really glad that you're here. And I'd also like to invite my friend and colleague, Reverend Mark Lingle. I'd like to just thank him for being here with us. He's been a friend personally and communally, and we are very lucky to have you in our community. Thank you. We're going to finish out the service with the words from Psalm 15, Pure heart, God, create for me. Erev Tov.
Erev Tov.
A good evening.